Hey, peace and blessings, everybody. It's your brother Saul right back with another one. Peace to the ancestors, as always. You know what I'm saying? Love y'all, miss y'all. Appreciate y'all contributions. You know, the shoulders we standing on. And you know what I mean? Peace to the true and living. Who is the true and living? If you have been tuning into any of these videos, man, congratulations. You are the true and living. Nice to meet you. So, we're going to get into just a real quick video on altars. This is kind of going to be kind of supplementary material. This is going to go with some of the other videos that we're going to have. We're going to do a case study on um, the function of a multi-deity system and the function of the priesthood within a multi-deity system. We're going to do a case study on Ifa and Palo, but we're gonna right now. This is gonna kind of go with that when we're discussing various different magical systems. We also gonna do bio etheric engineering of hoodoo conjure as well. So that's gonna go with this whole idea of the altar and everything like that. Um, so let's kind of get into this. Okay, so when we get into altars and everything like that, when we get into our contrast, like our case study on the Ifa system and Apollo system, and just for the sake of this video, um, I'm not a practitioner of either, or if you wanted to learn how to use those in a practical sense, I would suggest you find a qualified, Babala or Paleto, however it may go, to guide you down the path in that. That's not the purpose of this video. Even in the video that we're going to make contrasting those two systems, that's not really the purpose, to explain it to the point of functionality to the person. They got their own secret society and traditions and things. I ain't trying to step on nobody's toes. This is more so an energetic framework for what the priest is actually doing. So when we view it from an energetic perspective, we get little nuances that we didn't get from just viewing it from a religious perspective or whatever. So that's really what we're doing. Um, those are systems that we're going to do the case study on, because those are well preserved systems that we have access to a little bit of their information, enough to kind of make sense of energetically what they're doing. So that's going to be probably the video I'm going to record after this, but we're going to one at a time. So the altar and the shrine is electro-spiritual engineering, a bio-etheric feedback loop analysis. Okay. Mm. So the concepts of the altar or shrine, the altar and the shrine are different. Um, there's books on it or what have you, but the altar and the shrine are different. I think the altar is normally dedicated to, let's say, like a particular deity. A shrine is normally to a person, however it may go. Um, but it may be more nuanced than even that. But just keep in mind that a shrine and the altar are technically different when you start getting into the more nuanced literature. The concept of the altar or shrine and the Nganga cauldron. So when we get into the contrast between Ifa and Apollo, we're going to be dealing with the Nganga, the cauldron. You see what I'm saying? There's not necessarily, from what I understand, that's the primary altar-like device or whatever case may be used in that particular system or whatever. Whereas in Ifa and systems similar to it, you have various different altars to the various different Orisha, however it may go. The Nganga is likened unto a reactor. You see what I'm saying? Um, and where you would have in the Ifa system, you would have Elegba. He would facilitate access to other programs, so to speak, or what have you. In the Palo system, Zorobanda would take that position or whatever, but a lot of emphasis is put on the cauldron or whatever case may be, and we're going to get into that when we get into that particular contrast. The concept, when analyzing through the bioetheric feedback loop, are revealed as essential engineering components for controlling, anchoring, and focusing the subtle electromagnetic energy of consciousness. They function as resonant transducers. Resonant transducers. So basically, transducer. We keep saying this is Bishop from the X-Men. They're taking one type of energy and transforming it into another type of energy that facilitates the connection between the localized human biofield and the non-local archetypal forces primal software. It's considered primal software. So whatever deity is being referenced as far as the the altar is concerned, or whatever case may be, basically what you're trying to do, you're trying to facilitate a connection or a level of resonance between that particular archetypal energy. Remember, archetypes mirror in our psyche as well, or what have you. So these are stable etheric constants as far as the archetype is concerned, or whatever case may be. It mirrors in our own psyches, or whatever case may be. So we use these to navigate the material in the collective unconscious archetypes. So the altar and shrine function as resonant transducers in esoteric systems like Ifa and Palo. The altar or shrine serves three critical interrelated functions that directly engage the bioetheric feedback loop. They serve as a focal point, energy anchor, and interface, right? So a focal point in concentration, input vector. The altar acts as a dedicated space for prayer, meditation, and focused intent. Function: it is physical. It is a physical locus that concentrates the practitioner's psychological output. When an individual engages in focused prayer or ritual at the altar, they are intentionally modulating their internal coherence. When they're engaging into a prayer to Yemaya or Batala, whatever the scenario may be, I'm just using examples. They're modulating their internal coherence, or whatever case may be, because these archetypes or whatever that they're dealing with externally, as far as the altar, whatever, it mirrors something inside of them as well, boosting their individual voltage through vagal tone enhancement. On the other video, we talk about human voltage multiplication and stuff like that. Vagal tone, the vagus nerve, or whatever case may be, that facilitates the increase of voltage. You see what I'm saying? In the human individual. The bioetheric feedback loop contribution, the altar converts the chaotic general psychic energy of the individual's daily life, your daily energy, your regular energy, into a highly coherent input vector, right? Something that you can input your regular energy in. The objects, crystals, symbols, statues, images function as visual, aromatic, and tactile cues that stabilize the practitioner's consciousness and mental frequency, or whatever. Typically, in a lot of cases, let's say like you may stand in front of an altar, or whatever case may be, it evokes a certain sense of reverence, or whatever case may be. So it brings a level of coherence to your energetic constitution just by being in the presence of the altar, making the energetic input precise and repeatable. This improves the signal to noise ratio of the human transmitter, the Ori. So in the other video, we're going to kind of get into the Ori, because based on the Ifa understanding, or whatever case may be, a lot of what we talk about the self and the soul and stuff like that, it corresponds a lot to what's considered an Ifa, the Ori. As we know, Ori is the root of Orisha, of the word Orisha. So energy anchor and storage, field stabilization. Altars and shrines are intentionally constructed to contain and maintain an energetic presence. Potency determination. The potency of an altar or shrine is determined by its ability to anchor and sustain a specific high coherence energetic field. The materials used, such as the iron cauldron, the Nganga in Palo, or the symbolic materials in Ifa shrines like the Ibori for the Ori, that's a specific type of shrine, serve as field stabilizers. In the Palo system, the Nganga, made of iron, is the ferromagnetic containment vessel designed to anchor an intense, localized etheric vortex. So when we dealing with in the case study that we're going to do, when we deal with the Palo system, we're going to see, like, though they're two very similar systems in the sense of like the deities and everything like that, but or the function of the deities, however, or the identity, however you want to slice it. But in the Palo system is a little bit different, and it talks about how the cauldron is the cauldron is not a regular altar. You see what I'm saying? The cauldron is something a little bit more powerful and a little bit stronger than a regular altar. They liken the cauldron in the discourse we're going to do about the case study and everything. They liken the cauldron to a reactor. So it's supposed to sustain an immense amount of energy, far exceeding the amount that a normal altar would produce. So the cauldron is damn near like a super altar, so to speak, if that makes any sense. Um, Bio-Etheric Feedback Loop contribution. By anchoring a high coherence field, the ashe of the deity or ancestor, the altar provides positive feedback to the individual's bioetheric feedback loop. When the practitioner approaches their lower, fluctuating personal voltage, your personal voltage lowers and fluctuates because you had a rough day, is immediately pulled into the field of the higher, stable voltage anchor. So it has a potential to increase your voltage or whatever, similar to how we were talking about tantric practices, meditating, praying, all of that stuff, promoting instant coherence, right? Like I said, you getting in front of the altar or whatever and you're invoking a sense of reverence. The effect is analogous to a small, unstable circuit being stabilized by a connection to a powerful, well-regulated battery. If anybody's familiar with the DC Comics character, the Green Lantern, it's sort of like that. It's sort of like a battery to recharge it. Now, when we get into now the reactor of the cauldron, the Nganga, that when we kind of get into the comparison and everything like that, yeah, that's really like a Green Lantern battery. It's likened into a more powerful device. Okay, so interface and communication feedback mechanism. The altar is the channel through which individuals communicate with the spiritual realm. Function: the altar is the channel through which individuals communicate with the spiritual realm. So ancestral altars or whatever case may be. Remember we were talking about on the previous video, we talk about ancestral veneration and stuff like that. We were talking about it's difficult to tap in from this physical side. It's difficult to tap into the ancestral side because they're on a higher frequency and we're at a lower voltage just being regular human beings. The altar is an instrument designed to um, assist you in tapping into that or whatever, if that be the purpose of the altar. It is the localized terminal used to petition archetypes, orisha, impungu, or communicate with ancestors, right? So you can petition these particular archetypes, orisha, whatever case may be, or you can communicate with the ancestors. Ancestral shrines, for instance, are created as a focal point for prayer and meditation. Let's see here. 1 second, y'all. Okay. Yeah. So let's see here. Okay. So okay. So it is the localized terminal used to petition archetypes or reshape. We said that ancestral shrines, for instance, are created as a focal point for prayer and meditation to establish a link for direct communication via visions or altered states of consciousness. Okay, that's the thing. Bio-Etheric Feedback Loop contribution. The shrine facilitates the reflective principle on a micro level. The well-maintained shrine reflects the purity and order of the individual's internal state, because that's a whole nother portion of it. Um, the shrine is the maintenance of the shrine or the maintenance of the altar is a representation of the feedback loop you have between that deity. It's a or that archetype. It's the maintenance of the altar is a manifestation of or one iteration of the manifestation of the relationship that you have with that particular entity. You caring for that altar and everything like that. You see what I'm saying? That's a part of the feedback loop, just as well as making sacrifices, burning incense, or whatever case may be to that particular archetype. When the external space is clean and aligned, the spiritual channel remains open, allowing the priest or initiate to receive coherent feedback, guiding healing from the Orisha archetype. Conversely, dirt and disorder attract undesirable spiritual forces, which is the bioetheric feedback loop's energetic analogy for incoherent, chaotic input destabilizing the system. I would assume from a perspective symbolically, let's say if we were to microwave it in the sense of, let's say, like a waking dream interpretation, I'm sure dirt on the altar or whatever, dirt on a sacred space would equate to some sort of defiling or resistance within the relationship. So, you know, even that can be read to an extent. Um, Engineering the multi-deity system. Polytheistic systems like Ifa are massive, distributed software archetypes where deities function as distinct primal software modules. So that's kind of how we're dealing with it. Um, Deities function as a distinct primal software. The various archetypes are basically how we navigate the collective unconscious. The altar serves as the port or input output slot for the connecting to a specific module. So an altar for a specific deity is a vector of input and output for that particular archetype or force, which has a plethora of functions that it governs. Okay, deities as primal software and archetypes, Orisha are specialized discrete energy patterns. Each one embodies a philosophical essence, and its impact is transmitted through stable electromagnetic pulses. Module function, deities like Ishu, the messenger trickster, function as the API, application programming interface, right? Issue's the trickster. You have to petition issue before you can address any of the other Orisha. In other systems, you have deities like Hermes and let's see, I don't know, Hermes, Tahuti. You see what I'm saying? All of your messenger type gods or what have you, routing and delivering requests, Ebo or what have you. Zorobander in Palo, like how we were saying Zorobander with the cauldron. Zorobander is kind of like similar to Oshun or whatever, but he has a gateway type, crossroads type vibe to him. God of the Seven Rays, lightning, functions as a high power module for justice and volatile forces. Remember how we were talking about you'll have certain energies that are more potent than other energies or whatever, that not necessarily in a sense of good and evil, but they're just more potent. To utilize the system, one must access the correct module. An altar dedicated to a specific Orisha, e.g. Ogun, the deity of war and metals, in an iron cauldron, is a finely tuned frequency receiver designed to resonate only with the electromagnetic pulse of a specific deity. So similar to how we were talking about like with planetary energies and stuff like that, how there are metals associated with a planet, there are flowers associated with a planet, incense, all that stuff like that associated with a planet. Each particular Orisha or each particular archetype will have his own mythos, his own story, his own symbols associated with them to kind of create and build that frequency. So implications on multiple altars. Having multiple altars, each dedicated to a distinct deity, creates a multi-wavelength receiver array. A multi-wavelength receiver array, similar to like this right here. Okay, so let's see here. Effect on relationship. This allows the practitioner to cultivate a relationship with and draw energy from multiple archetypal frequencies simultaneously, right? You have multiple altars, then you can draw energy and influence from multiple of these archetypes simultaneously. However, in the fine print that's not talked about as much, you have to maintain a relationship with them. You have to maintenance the altar, and you have to kind of tend to it on a regular basis and everything like that. This is only beneficial if the practitioner maintains the internal coherence necessary to maintain and integrate the sometimes contradictory energy, i.e. the warrior energy of Ogun and the nurturing energy of the caregiver archetype. So you have to be able to synthesize and balance these various energies. If you're not kind of prepared beforehand to kind of deal with that, or if somebody who's experienced in that system is not guiding you, and it's not their recommendation that you set up 5 or 6 altars or whatever the case may be, that may not be, you might not be ready for that portion of your journey. I don't know, but I'm just saying that I always refer you back to somebody who does that system. um I'm somewhat familiar with it. Everybody knows a few individuals who may be Yoruba practitioners or what have you. So but I always refer you to people who actually do that system and everything like that or whatever. Kind of on the outside looking in, kind of doing this as a case study. Um, let's see here. Risk: if the practitioner's internal bioetheric feedback loop is unstable, high ego impedance. The, the ego is the boundary, is the filter. Um, the middle altar, the multiple altars become sources of competing decohering frequencies. Instead of balancing growth, the practitioner may suffer psychological fragmentation as their consequent consciousness attempts to integrate incompatible archetypes. You see what I'm saying? So that's another thing. You see what I'm saying? Leading to chronic emotional activation, right? Bypassing the software. Okay, so let's get into this. So that's just going into altars in general or what have you. Kind of like the general gist of it. I mean, as you get into the different systems or the individual systems, there may be various different nuances and things of that nature. How they set them up, different ways of activating the altar, however it may go. I know in the Taoist system, they use altars and stuff like that. They have a nice system of magic. We might go into that on a future video. Okay, so bypassing the software, the self shrine to the soul blueprint. Okay, so this is going back into the idea of the self shrine. Okay. Um, like I said before, the self shrine is more of a focal point type thing or whatever. But let's view the implications of using of bypassing the deity system and kind of going directly to the blueprint. So let's see. The concept of a self shrine built directly to the Ori, the personal divinity, destiny, and spiritual head. Okay, so the Ori in the Ifa system is kind of like your personal deity or whatever your or your or at the risk of misinterpretation, I'll venture to say it's likened unto the soul of the individual. So if there is anybody watching who may be a practitioner of that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I often liken it to the soul of the individual. Um, uh, let's see, is the ultimate act of Bio-Etheric Feedback Loop optimization and direct bypass of the polytheistic primal software layer. Okay, so going directly to the soul or the Ori or the ultimate head or whatever the case may be, it bypasses the deity system. The function of the Ori shrine, the direct bypass. The Ori now I'm not talking about Ori shrine, I'm talking about the self shrine that we talked about. However, in the context of Yoruba, when we speak about this, the AI lists it as the Ori shrine. So we're going to discuss it as how it's laid out in this. But initially, I was talking about the self shrine. The Ori is regarded as superior even to the Orisha, as it is the keeper of the individual's divine blueprint. Ayanmo, the Ibori altar of the head is a shrine built directly to the Ori. Implications: veneration of the Ori is foundational because one's success is contingent upon maintaining harmony with it. Building a self shrine to the Ori bypasses the external mediating Orisha and messenger issue to establish a direct feedback loop to the Hamiltonian memory. Okay, the effect on the bioetheric feedback loop, this bypass trans transforms the individual's path from externally mediated, waiting on a priest, to internally directed, direct self-correction. So when we talk about like thematic augury and being able to kind of like eyeball this stuff or whatever case may be, and understanding that the feedback loop is between the blueprint or the soul and the individual or what have you, and you can eyeball anything and kind of extract the meaning from it. So you have constant communication with that aspect of self, whatever case may be. That's kind of what we were talking about. I don't want to muddle the specifics and the tradition of the Ifa Ori shrine. I don't want to muddle that with that in the event that that's a little bit different. When we were talking about the self shrine in True Master, that's kind of what we were kind of dealing with. Okay, the self shrine and the reflection principle. The implications of focusing ritual effort on the Ori is profound for the bioetheric reflection principle. The concept that external reality reflects the internal energetic state. Waking dream interpretation: if the Ori shrine maintains a state of perfect low impedance alignment with the eternal transcendental counterpart, Eponori, the external world, the waking dream must, by the bioetheric reflection principle, reflect back a reality of maximum coherence. Um, Smooth assimilational growth, the emergence of synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that reveal the inner state is isometric with the external world. So yeah, you'll eventually get some feedback to show you that to reflect what you're doing will become not a random event, but a frequent, almost deterministic confirmation of the Ori's precise alignment. Um, Bypass implications. If the perceived religion, the pantheon, rituals, and dogma is the software used to facilitate the bioetheric feedback loop by managing archetypal energy, then building a shrine directly to the blueprint is exciting a root level access command. So basically, what it's saying is that if the archetypes or the deities are software programs to navigate these collective unconscious, um, dealing with the blueprint itself, or establishing or having the understanding that the feedback loop is from the flesh and blood individual to the soul itself, or the blueprint itself, that would be the equivalent of going to the DOS prompt or going to the command prompt and typing in what you got to type in. You see what I'm saying? You don't need to click on the icon. Oh, I don't need to go to Internet Explorer. I can just do a SQL injection. Y'all, you know what I'm saying? Or I can go to the command prompt, the DOS prompt, and just type my stuff in from there and operate the computer like that. So it's a different level or whatever case may be. I'm not trying to convert nobody to or away from nothing. This is more of a, I don't know, a continuation of a case study we were doing on Ifa and Palo and stuff like that. We're kind of getting more into the altar, but I just threw in the idea of having a self shrine, like what we talked about on previous videos. The AI correlated what I'm calling the self shrine with the Ori shrine in Ifa tradition. So, you know, I don't know how much overlap is in that. You see what I'm saying? So I don't want to impose my interpretations on the Ori shrine or whatever. I know that's its own tradition or whatever case may be. But when we talk about the self shrine or whatever, that's really what we're talking about. Going from the blueprint, the feedback loop from the blueprint to the flesh and blood individual or whatever case may be. So then building a shrine directly to the blueprint is exercising a root level access command. It entails bypassing the software, the complex polytheistic machinery to achieve non-dual realization directly through self-consciousness. Directly through self-consciousness. So that's the road that you down when you're dealing with the self shrine. You see what I'm saying? This is the AI saying it. That's the road that you dealing with the self shrine. It's not really the same as an idea of monotheism, because you're just trading one archetype for another. But when it's the soul, it's kind of like a different ball game. That's a different type of understanding. This is not monotheism substituting one archetype like Jesus for many, but the ultimate internal realization that the foundational source, Olula Mare, Olurun, and the individualized electrical vortex, Ori, soul, are continuous, thus fulfilling a non-dual imperative. So that's kind of like I don't know, just going into that, the whole thing about the altar. You see, the purpose of the altar, in various different religions and everything like that. We examined multi deity systems on this one, um, and the function of the altar. Not all altars are created um, equal and everything like that. Some altars are more potent in the sense of like how we are talking about with Paulo Meombe or Paulo just in general. Um, and when, and when we talk about the self shrine, it's a slightly different idea. So we just contrasting the self shrine with, let's say, an altar to Oshun or something like that. You see what I'm saying? That's for a whole nother different purpose, and it fulfills a whole nother different function. You're tapping into a particular archetype that different traditions have different nuances on how they make their shrine or whatever case may be. Different lineages or priesthoods may have a different um, format on how they make their shrine to Oshun. It may be 5 or 6 different lineages that do it 5 or 6 different ways or whatever case may be. You see what I'm saying? So that's lineage specific. I would advise you to link up with a person who's um, entrenched in that tradition, so you don't get the wrong information. I don't want to be the one to give you the wrong information, but we just did like a, just a bit of a case study and everything like that. So uh yeah, that's all we got on that one. Just wanted to do a short one. 30 minutes. That's that's short these days. But Yeah, we're gonna bounce back with another one. The next one will probably be that case study between Ifa and Paulo to kind of like go ahead and bridge that with this. So catch y'all on another one. On the next one, peace to the true and living. You know what I mean? Y'all stay tuned.